Hey fellow writers, this is Rich Blazevich. Before I get started on this video, I want to invite you to check out a writer's workshop that I've got on my website. If you go to the description for this video, you'll find a link to a workshop called Jumpstart Writing Your Book. And this workshop is designed specifically to get you moving if you're writing your first book. So click on that link, check out the workshop, and hopefully it'll help you write your first book. Now let's jump into this video. In this video, I'm going to explain how to format the paperback version of your book. Specifically, what we're going to cover is which file format works best for paperback books, and then how do you format your paperback book file yourself. According to Amazon, for their KDP publishing platform, 3 file formats work well. First one is the portable document format, which is PDF. Next one is Microsoft Word format, which is either a DOC file or a DOCX file. They will also accept a text file, so a file that has the extension .txt. Let's look at a comparison of these 3 different file formats. When you look at the ease of formatting, PDFs are very easy to format. What I'm going to show you in the back half of this video is how to format a document. First of all, you're going to format it in the Word format, and then you're going to save it as a PDF file. So PDF works great in terms of ease of formatting. So do Word documents. Text documents are very difficult to format. There's only certain formatting that's available. So text really isn't a good option when you're trying to format the document. In terms of the cost to convert your file into these file formats, it's free, whether you're converting it into a PDF, a Word file, or a text file. So cost really isn't a factor. In terms of which file formats look good, the PDF format looks the best. When you format your file and you save it as a PDF, whatever you send to your publishing platform should be what the final book looks like. There typically aren't differences from the way it looks on your screen to the way it looks when it's printed out. With a Word document, sometimes the printers will mess with the formatting a little bit. Sometimes the formatting will get off a little bit. So it doesn't always look as good when it's printed as it does on your screen. And a text file typically doesn't format well, so it doesn't look very good once it's printed out in paperback format. Most publishers use PDF files. As a matter of fact, some publishers will only accept PDF files. For example, Ingram Spark won't accept a Word file. They won't accept a text file. You have to upload your document in a PDF format. So considering these criteria, the PDF format is the best format to use when you're formatting a paperback book. Again, the way I'm going to show you in the back half of this video to format a PDF is, first of all, format it in a word processing program and then save the file as a PDF file. Here are some formatting tips. First of all, I recommend you use a standard size for your book. Don't try and get fancy when you're formatting the book size. When you're formatting the margins inside of your book, I recommend 0.75 inches all the way across, top, bottom, left, and right. And then use a font that's very simple. The recommended fonts for most publishers are Times New Roman, Arial. You could also use Garamond or Palatino Lithotype. What you don't want to use is a fancy font. Readers won't mind if you use a standard font. If you publish your book in an unusual font, in a lot of cases, readers will provide feedback that it wasn't as readable as other books. Here are a few more formatting tips. In terms of font size, I find that 11-point font is ideal. Unless you want it to be really large font, in which case you could go as high as 12-point font, 11-point seems to be a very comfortable font to read. In terms of chapter headlines, I like those chapter headlines to be a little bit bigger, so 20-point font seems to be a good size for the chapter headlines. I like to space the text in my book at 1.2 line spacing, so that gives a little bit of space between the lines. I have seen people go as high as 1.5. If you go any higher than that on your line spacing, it's going to look like you have a lot of empty space in your document. So see how it looks for you. See if you like 1.2, 1.5, whatever line spacing you prefer. And then I like to indent my book. So at the beginning of each paragraph, I recommend you use a 1/2-inch indentation. And then also, if you want to put scene breaks in your chapters, which are the 3 little asterisks that let people know you're going to a different scene or you're jumping in time. So you can use those 3 little asterisks. I recommend you center them on the center of the page, and I'll show you how to format those once we get into the Word document. I also recommend you put your page numbers in the middle of the page. Some authors like to go page numbers on the outside bottom of the page. Some authors like to put them right in the middle. To me, it's a little easier to find the page numbers, and it's a lot easier to format them if you just put them at the bottom of the page, centered. Now let's look at how you might want to organize the sections of your book. It's common practice to start the first page in your book as the title page with the copyright information. And then I like going straight into the introduction. I like giving the reader a few pages that tell them exactly what the book's about, and I use the introduction for that. Then I get into the table of contents, then the actual chapters, some reference materials at the end, and then the last page I like to include the about the author, and that's where I encourage people to look for other books that I've written. Here's some optional sections for your book that you could include either at the beginning or the end, doesn't matter, whichever you prefer. Readers aren't as concerned about these sections, so it might be more important to you that you include them than to your reader that you've included them. You can include an acknowledgement page, a dedication page, a foreword where you have somebody write a little bit about your book, a conclusion at the end of your book. These are purely optional, but I do recommend the other sections of the book you lay out in the order that I've listed. Now let's go into the tutorial and I will show you step by step how I recommend you format your paperback book. One thing I like to do when I'm formatting the paperback version of my book is open up two documents in my word processing program. One of them is going to have the content from the book, and the other one is going to be a blank document that I put all of my formatted information into. So I'm going to go into the section of the program where I can change the layout, and I'm going to change the paper size first, go to more paper sizes, and then put in the custom size. So the width, if my book is going to be 6 inches wide, change that to 6 inches, change the height to 8 inches. And now I've got a standard book size. Now the margins start out at being very wide. They start out as an inch on the left side and an inch on the right side. So let's trim those margins down to about 3/4 of an inch. Same thing over here, trim it down to about 3/4 of an inch on this side. And then same thing top and bottom. And that way we've got much more reasonable margins. Great, so now we've got our margin set. Next, I want to pick the font that I'm going to use for this document. So I'm going to go back to where I can change fonts. And in Microsoft Word, there's a section here in the home menu where you have different font options. I'm going to right click on the normal font. I'm going to hit modify. And then I recommend you change this to Times New Roman, 11-point font, and then go into where this little format button is here and change the paragraph setting so that you have multiple line spacing, and change the line spacing to 1.2. Then go back into the format paragraph section and let's do an indentation at the beginning of the first line of every paragraph. And let's go 1/2 inch indentation. Great. Now this will be the normal sections of the book. So this will be where the paragraphs are. I'm also going to change the titles, and I'm going to make sure every title has the same font and the same font size. So if you go up here to heading 1 and you right click on it and hit modify, you can go in and change the font, Times New Roman. I like it a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go 20-point font. I'm going to make it bold. And it's got a strange color here. It's kind of a navy blue color. Let's change that to a black font. And then go into Format, Paragraph. I don't want it indented. I want no indentation. And then I'm going to go ahead and say single line space there. And OK. So now all of my titles, I will use this heading 1 format. And then I'm going to create one more format. So this format right here is called no spacing. I can change that. So I'm going to right click on that and modify it. And this is going to be, let's call it centered text. Centered text. And I'm going to make this Times New Roman 11-point. And then I'm going to change the paragraph to make sure that it is not indented. And it is, let's use the same line spacing that we used for the paragraphs, 1.2 for the line spacing. Great. Now all of the text in my document is either going to be a headline, it's going to be normal with an indentation, or it's going to be centered without an indentation. Actually, I forgot to hit the center, so go back into modify, go back into paragraph, and then change it so that instead of aligned on the left side, it is aligned centered. Okay. Now, this is the file I'm going to use for the formatted version of the document. I would recommend you save this and call it whatever the title of your book is, and then add paperback format. Let's take all of the content that's in the book, and I've got about 111 pages in this book, so it's a fairly short book. I'm going to copy it, and I am going to put it in the new document. And I'm going to right-click and choose this Keep Text Only. And what that will do is that will prevent you from having any kind of strange formatting. It'll just copy over the words. It won't copy over any of the formatting that you put in there while you were writing the book. Okay, this is the title page. So on the first page, I want this to be a heading. I'm going to center that. And then I want this to be centered, no indentation. I'm also on the copyright page going to make all of this content centered, no indentation. And then I'm going to put a page break, insert, pages, page break. And then I'm just going to go through and format everything. It looks like most of the document has been formatted in the normal format. The things that need to change are the chapter titles. So every place I see a chapter title, I'm going to go to my home menu and I'm going to choose heading 1. And then I just noticed my heading 1 isn't centered. I do want my titles centered. So let's modify this setting so that the paragraph setting is always set on centered. And now the format for my chapter titles will be centered. And then just scroll through your book. It looks like we've got an extra indentation there. I've got a tab that's messed up, so I'm going to delete that. Now I haven't added the page numbers yet, so let's go ahead and do that. To add page numbers in Microsoft Word, you hit the Insert tab, and then you go into Page Number. And let's put them at the bottom of the page, and let's add them as plain number 1. And then there it is. It's in the normal format, so it's indented. We don't want it in the normal format. We want it in the centered format. There we go. And now we have page numbers on every page. To get out of the footer setting where you've just added the page number, you just double click up above where you see a paragraph. And then here is a new chapter. So I'm going to highlight this, change that to the chapter headline. And it looks like this chapter starts partway down the page. So anytime you have a chapter that starts partway down the page, just click at the beginning of the chapter title and go Insert, Pages, Page Break. And that moves that chapter to the next page. And keep scrolling down. There is one of those triple asterisks that I use to designate when I'm going from one scene to another within a chapter. So I like that being centered. Let's go back to the home menu and choose centered, no indentation. And now that looks like the format looks good. You're going to keep changing those triple asterisks if you have them and if you like to use them. And it's that simple. Sometimes you're going to see things where there's a double space here, there's a single space there. Just go ahead and click those over so that you correct them as you go. And all of these are looking pretty good. That's how you format your book. Just make sure you've got the settings right so you have the right font listed under the styles, and use normal style for paragraphs. Use centered, no indentation for anything that you want centered on the page, and use heading for the chapter titles. If you see something you don't like here the margin's a little bit tight with the page number, you can adjust that as you go. So let's bring the bottom margins up a little bit so there's some space before you get to that page number. And then let's zoom out so we can see how all of the pages look. It's looking pretty good. All you have to do is go through your entire book. It might take you 15, 20 minutes to go through and make sure you've got the chapter titles consistent, the paragraphs consistent, the page numbers look good, and then anytime you have a scene break, that should look good. I'm going to show you how to insert a table of contents. Actually, before I do that, here's something that looks a little bit off. There's a couple of lines here that spilled over onto the next page. So I'm going to adjust the formatting on this page so it looks a little bit better. That's a page that has an extra space here. Get rid of that. And then I can adjust the margin a little bit so that comes back up there. Great. Now that's a good looking page. I don't need this blank page here, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that and move the title back up, and then just keep scrolling down, make sure everything looks good. Now, I do want to add a table of contents. Usually for my books, I like to put it right after the introduction. I like the introduction to be, what are you going to learn in this book? Then go into the table of contents. So let's insert a page here, insert page break, and then let's type in table of contents. And then go up to the references menu and choose table of contents and click on the table of contents format that you're going to want. Now what it did is it pulled in anything that was listed as a heading format. So there's the heading format, and it put it in the table of contents. It knows that those are my chapter headlines, and it only pulled in the first three because I haven't gone through and I haven't formatted all of the chapter headlines yet. Once I format them, I can click on this and I say update table, then it will update with the page numbers. So I'm going to fast forward through the formatting so you can see what I'm doing, and then I'll come back and I'll update the table of contents. Once you get everything formatted, go back to the beginning where you have your table of contents, and I'm going to zoom in so you can read it. At the very top, it says update table. Click on that and update entire table. Okay. And what you'll see is I missed a chapter. You can go back. My chapters are numbered 1 through 6, and I missed one of the chapters. When I was formatting, didn't change it to heading number 1. So I'm going to scroll back through, make that change, and then my table of contents will be updated. There it is. So I'm going to click here, go heading 1, and go insert page break, and go back up to the table of contents, and click on update table, update entire table. Okay. I'm going to make one last change. It added the word contents here. I don't like the way it's laid out there. I like the way it's laid out here. So I'm going to change this to home heading 1. And now I have a very simply formatted book. You should go through page by page and check and make sure that nothing looks unusual, make corrections as you go. And once you get everything exactly the way you want it, then it's time to save it as a PDF file. So go File, Save it as a Word document first, and then Save As, Browse, find a place on your computer where you want to save it, and then I save it under the book title. That's a Bullseye is the name of this book. And then I'm going to put Paperback Format, save it as a Word document, then go File, Save As, and save it in the same spot and save it as a PDF file. Now the PDF file is going to take just a minute to generate because it's converting the file over from a Word document to a PDF document, and it will pop up on your screen as a nice looking formatted file. This is the file you're going to upload to the publishing platform. And as you can see, everything's going to look exactly the way you formatted it when the book gets printed. So it won't change any of the formatting. PDFs are really good about holding the formatting in place so it doesn't mess up the way anything looks. Now, one thing I like to do is just go back and double check the table of contents to make sure I updated it. I'm going to go to page 127 just to make sure that that is the About the Authors page. And there it is. Page 127, About the Authors. So that means I did remember to update the table of contents. That is how I recommend formatting your paperback book. And I know it seems simple. That's kind of the point. Readers don't want a lot of convoluted, complex formatting. They want to be able to read your book. They don't want to be distracted by things that look unusual. If you want to add complex formatting, that's okay. But my recommendation is keep it as simple as you possibly can. And that way the reader can focus on the content in your book and not what you're doing with your formatting. Here are the action steps for this lesson. First of all, format the book the way I've explained it and do that in the word processing program that you're the most comfortable in. That could be Microsoft Word, Apple Pages, Google Docs, whichever program. I showed you how to do it in Microsoft Word. If you're more comfortable in a different program, great. Use the program that you like using and then save the document as a PDF file. And that way you'll have a PDF that you can upload to the publishing platform. So that's it. That's all you need to do to format the paperback version of your book. Now, don't forget to check out that link that's in the description for this video. It will take you to my writing workshop on how to jumpstart writing your book. And if you like this video and you want to see more of them, hit that subscribe button. Best wishes, and I hope this video helps you. Happy writing.